Okay, we've got a multifaceted mission today. We've got a bunch of different things to test, some tunes to develop, and not freeze in the process. So thanks to Aurora for keeping me warm today. Link in the description for 30% off. But yeah, so we've got in here flight bag full of stuff. We've got the Outlaw 1072S so we can charge our batteries. And then we've got a Shendrones Siccario, but we're running some 8-inch propellers on both top and bottom, as well as our 3300 milliamp hour battery. I've only got one of these right now because Winston stole one of mine by accident. And then we're going to be testing out a red Komodo fake. It's 3D printed. So we're going to be testing out and building a tune for that for 8-inch props. There's that thing there, but I can't show you that, so that's going to be blurred. And then I've got a few different kinds of props. We've got some bi-blades just to see what those are like. Some new 7-inch goodness from HQ. All thanks to our buddies at Quad Standard Labs for hooking us up. So really today is just about testing all of those. There's not going to be any Komodo footage or probably VGH1 unless I get really motivated because I don't want to swap it from the other Cinelifter to that Cinelifter. But yeah, so that should give us enough stuff to try out, play with, talk about the Outlaw a little bit, talk about the Siccario. It's gonna be a good little vlog day. Let's do it. I love low-key, low-agenda days like this where it's just get over, fly, figure out something. I'm looking forward to it. Let's go.
8 points later, I thought it was about time we hit the finish line. 8 points.
Actually looks pretty nice out here with this little layer of snow. Really glad for that. Otherwise it's just kind of dead. But yeah, so I guess we'll test out the 8-inch props right away. It's all ready to go. I just need to get it in the air, tune it up, see what it's like. Actually, I did forget about one thing. The Komodo fake thing is underweight. I need to put some weight in it. And I tried to find as much stuff around the house as I could that would just add weight. I couldn't find anything that would work, so I'm like kind of just like looking around, trying to find some gravel without looking too suspect. So here we go. I need to add another like 600 grams to this thing. So I brought my scale out into the field. This is what we do for science. Oh my gosh. Rocks, why don't you weigh more? I'm not gonna fit all of this. All right, well, we'll get close. What's that, you ask? What am I doing? Oh, just stuffing rocks into my Komodo for reasons. It's gonna have to do. God, it's heavy. I bet you it's too heavy for the scale. Let's see. Overload. Well, too heavy for the scale, but not too heavy to fly. Let's get in the air.
Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys. Man's so tough, but man's keep walking. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls let it tell me I'm awesome. Yeah, hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch man, please use caution.
For this first flight, you can see that I'm taking it really easy and trying to find all of the little pieces, edge cases where things aren't quite working right. You'll see me like blip the throttle a few times in a row just to see if the nose is dipping, which it is. So when I hit the throttle and kind of give it the bop, 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 you see the nose drop. Constantly doing little maneuvers like rolls and flips to see where the edge of the tune actually is. Right there, you can see the nose bobbles. That's no pitch is being added to that. That's all just on the throttle. On the edge cases, you can see the little vibrations in the roll axis, and even doing split S's like that, you can see that there's a little bit of prop wash at the bottom of it. These are all things that are not desirable in a tune, so we're trying to find what all of those things are in this first flight so that we can start addressing them one by one as part of the tune. Overall, it didn't actually look too bad. I mean, obviously this is just GoPro footage, so you don't really know exactly what it looks like, but it's at least flying well, even if it's not the perfect tune. So it's a really good sign that even despite all of the amount of weight that we've got on here with the big old Komodo plus the 8-inch props, like it is punching out well. It's recovering from dives well, and it feels really good in the air. It just needs a little bit of perfection to get all of the edge cases out. You can see at the end of those rolls, it's kind of giving a little bit of P oscillation back and forth wobble at the end of those things. You know, big old throttle punch just to test it. I mean, this thing moves for just, again, how freaking heavy it is.
Okay, test flight 1 done, just feeling the motors to see how temperatures are. Feeling pretty good. Nothing abnormal there. Of course, it's pretty freaking cold already, so. But yeah, so first flight went pretty well. It flies really well. It's definitely a pig. Like, even with the 8-inch props, it's really struggling to get there. But like, I mean, it does a good job. It flies nice and smooth. I felt confident with it. Like, I did a couple pretty big split S's and dives. Yeah, there's definitely an issue on the pitch axis. You can see, like, when I give it throttle blips, it kind of dips the nose. So I'm gonna try to rebalance it a little bit and tune up the PIDs for that a bit. And then there was also some just jitters in the roll. So I'm gonna try to bring up the I, which fights that error a little bit, and then also probably the P and D just a touch to try to counteract the little issues that I was seeing with the roll happening. I also noticed that it's occasionally very windy out here, so you get a big cross breeze coming that's going to be hitting this giant sail here on the side of the camera. I mean, you can see the size of a GoPro compared to the Komodo. It's big, but yeah, it's flying pretty well. It's pretty close to where it needs to be with the tune that I already had on it, so I need to just take it up a notch. I should say that in that one flight, I took this battery from full charge to 3.7 per channel, just in probably 2 minutes. So it eats up battery for sure, but I mean, you got to get that tugboat in the air no matter what. So okay, I just bumped up the P and D and I actually of pitch and roll for now. We're gonna see where that leaves us. Give it back in the air, check it out, see how it flies, and then put it back down and see where we need to go from there. I've also spread the weight out a little bit. I moved the battery just a touch further back to try to counteract the fact that it's so nose heavy with that big camera on there. So hopefully between those two things, we will be well on our way. All right, now the roll seems closer, but the pitch definitely seems further away. So I'm gonna try to centralize the weight again and see if I can get it any better. So what I noticed when I landed this time is that the back motors underneath are much warmer than any of the other motors. And so I was playing with the weight, with the battery on there. The weight was very much back heavy. So, but the problem is I have the lens of the camera is way smaller and lighter than it should be. Just thinking about like what would normally be on there. Come on. So it's kind of an unfair weight balance. So what I'm gonna try to do is just cheat this thing forward a little bit, pretending that the mass of the lens is moved forward, so that hopefully we get a little bit better of a weight distribution. Because right now my test is not very good because the lens that we're using is fake and much lighter than it's supposed to be. So I'm gonna set it down like that, and that should cheat the weight of the body a little bit further forward, which will give us a more fair comparison. Even though you wouldn't normally fly it like that, but there would normally be more weight. And I'm stoked to have the Relion Outlaw 1072 here keeping me charged. So I'm just tapping off the input for the battery and then also charging my GoPro off of the USB ports on the front end. And if my battery was low, I can just plug it right into the actual AC port right there in the front. That is such a nice tool to have. Okay, so now the balance is much more centered across the middle of the drone. Maybe still a touch back heavy, maybe a little bit nose heavy even. So we'll see how this does. And my friggin' GoPro died. Okay, with the center of gravity redone, I just flew it and oh my gosh, it is a game changer. It flies amazing. There's a little bit of hiccups again with the wind, but like in terms of snap rolls and snap over and even some split S stuff, like it was locked in. I'm charging up the GoPro a little bit more to get it running so that I can actually get some onboard footage from you guys, because I guess it died in the last flight too. And then I'll also run my DVR so that we have some good comparison. But oh baby, even with that big camera on there, it's starting to fly great.
Now for this flight, you'll notice that the camera angle is very low. That's on purpose, again, because I was trying to use it to reset the center of balance for the drone, and as a consequence, the camera angle is super low. But if you watch for all of those edge cases that we were talking about earlier, the split S prop wash, the issues with the roll axis, the issues with the nose where we did throttle punches, a lot of it is gone / much better. There's still things that I'm seeing, like in the, that long fast forward flight, you could see it kind of vibrating just a little bit. Again, it was also pretty windy this day, so there's little compromises here and there that we've got to make, but you can see that the controllability is much higher. It's super easy to fly. There's a lot less situations, like that roll right there was great, and then you sat on your prop wash and there was a little bit of a bup, but it's not the end of the world. It's definitely much better than it was. Getting those snap orbits around, it's not chewing through its prop wash. Here's a split S. You can see like a little bit again at the bottom, but it's not all the way down like a bad tune would be. So really liking how it's flying now. It's night and day different now that we've spent time kind of pushing up the P and D terms, maybe bumping the I down a little bit, all that good stuff. Tuning this is helping a lot. Another thing worth mentioning is that I'm really not a huge fan of these 8-inch props. There's too much surface area to them that it makes it really tricky to tune. Like, I feel like props are easier to tune when they're kind of rotating at like a higher RPM with a little bit lower angle of attack. That might just be personal preference, but that's just kind of how I feel about that. And in addition, I'm also noticing that there's a lot more power from them, so it's a compromise for sure.
Okay, with that last run, you should have seen the GoPro footage, and you can see that it's flying pretty great. Like in the split S's, the hard maneuvers, the kind of orbity sorts of movements, it's looking really good. Like, I'm really happy with it. I'm seeing some like jitters here and there in the kind of just like fast forward flight. The wind is coming and going today, so there's a little bit of that kind of causing some issues. I think that definitely is not going to help, and so I'm not totally sure if the tune is done, but it's at least on the way to being done. Okay, I kept talking about how heavy that was, but I never actually gave a measurement on that weight, so I figured it would be worth like sitting down with the individual components, weighing them out, and telling you how much it actually is. So, Komodo, 1,358 grams. Battery, 606 grams. Siccario, 1,169 grams. So you put all that together and you get
3,133 grams.
That's freaking heavy. We've done a lot of testing now with the 8-inch propellers. I think these are pretty killer. But we've also got some brand new HQ 7x3.5x3 props, which are going to be a slightly less angly prop, but still have a lot of bite, especially at these high RPMs that we're running these 6S 1300 kV 7-inch props. So I've got those installed now. I'm gonna play with that, see what that looks like. I think it should be a pretty killer setup. We're using the same weight, same GoPro. So you take a look at the two GoPro shots side by side and tell me what you think.
I've been out looking at places for so long, but everywhere I look, it points me back to you. Don't you say we got too crazy? A little mischief makes fun. You told me I was your favorite book. Was it true? Those good old days are worth looking back. There's one thing on my mind. In those times you call me baby, in those hours you said you loved me. Was it all fake love? 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 I remember those eyes, they spark like the stars. I look into them and they spell out a different girl. Baby, tell me, was it all real? Or tell me, in those times you call me baby, in those hours you said you loved me, was it all fake love? 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 Was it never be the same. I will give you every hour on the clock and tell me every reason, babe. I showed you my heart, but you only gave me fake love. You only gave me fake love.
You know what? Who needs 8-inch props? Holy crap, dude. Those little 7-inch guys can rip. The throttle band was pushed much higher, so like at the low end it would still kind of like, took a while to kind of get up to speed, but you had a lot of throttle resolution, so it felt really good. Like, really good. I don't know what the tune is like. I didn't pay too much attention, so I was just trying to figure out the power band, but like, I mean, this thing is still honking heavy. And even with the 7-inch props compared to the 8, like these things are flying. Like this might be the play. These like slightly lower angle, just slice through it. It felt like it had great throttle resolution, and the top speed was pushed towards the high end, which I really liked. So that's pretty sick. Okay, I think that will do it for a day's worth of testing for the Siccario. I'm starting to get kind of cold and ready to get out of the weather, but yeah, really excited about both the 7-inch and 8-inch props on this thing. Can't wait to get a komodo on there. I wish I had my BGH1 mount with me to be able to fly this thing with the BGH1 with these 7-inch props, but that'll have to wait for another day. So thanks very much for watching this. Hope you enjoyed, learned something about how to tune drones, and stay flying.